Most people talk about leadership like it's theory. I've lived it in the mud, the chaos, and the moments nobody writes about. This show is the truth, raw, unfiltered, and built for leaders who actually give a damn. If you're ready to grow, ready to own your own story, and ready to lead from the front, you're in the right place. Speak up, show up, lead. Let's get into it. Welcome to another episode of Leadership Live edition of Speak Up, Show Up, Lead. I'm JJ Hardy, the host of Speak Up, Show Up, Lead. And my co-host for Leadership Live is Chris Pienkowski, and he's here with me today. How you doing today, Chris?
I'm great, JJ. How are you?
I'm well. It's a good day. The cold weather seems like it's wanted to come back a little bit, so I'm not sure what kind of bipolar stuff Mother Nature's got going on, but I'm enjoying it.
Are you really?
It's not so cold to where you can't enjoy it, but it's cold enough to where you're like, man, it was just 80 degrees a few days ago. What the heck is really going on here?
Yeah. And it's, today's May 2nd. You'd expect it to be a little warmer, but like I've got yard work to do today, and we're only forecasted to be like high in the low 60s. So I don't mind working in the yard when it's like in the low 60s and I'm not sweating my butt off.
Yeah, and I got to mow too. This is probably this is the second time this year that I've gone out to mow the grass in a sweatshirt.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Which is weird because normally, the grass doesn't start growing until, it hits 50s, 60s and above. So, I mean, we've had the grass started growing this year and it's dropped down into the 30s again and then gone back up. And it's been an interesting year. But anyway,
so I thought you were going to say you're used to cutting the grass with no shirt on.
I don't even want to see that, let alone anybody else. But thank you, Chris. I really appreciate that. That's a good one. Well, let's get into our topic a little bit. So today, we went through this whole reinvention process, and now and we went through a few calls about execution. But today, this one's about, since we've already done the execution stuff and we've gone over what happens when you don't know what to do next and everything else. This is what happens when you start losing losing your luster during execution, what you can do to get yourself back in the game. And it's not just about your why, because we talked about that too, but other things. So, go ahead and get us going here. Let's get the topics flowing. What do you think about that?
Yeah. So one of the most important things that you need to keep in mind when you're chasing a goal is that it's not always going to be flashy and fun and you don't see results like overnight. There's no magic button. So there will be times that it gets boring or it feels monotonous. But what I think a lot of people don't see is the fact that that's where the progress is made. And it's in the things that you just like, you have to get your reps in. And by getting your reps in, you build that muscle memory and you continue to get better over time. But it's definitely easy to fall into a trap where you're feeling like it's just a routine. It's not got me excited as excited as I was when I first started this journey. And, you've got to work through that mental space because that's really where it counts.
Yes. And, what do they say? That moment that you decide to quit, it's right after that you actually start seeing some results or some success. Yeah. So, there was that analogy. I think I remember seeing it right before I started my business where they had that guy digging a hole and he was trying to find something at the very bottom. And it showed the view from far away, and it showed that he was only this far, but he quit when he was right there.
Exactly.
And this is kind of what we're talking about right now. And what's great about that though is once you get the reps in and you build to the point where you start seeing the results and seeing the success, that whole going through the motions constantly, if you're doing the right things and it works, that's good. You're not going to see it right away, and you're not going to see it when you expect to see it. But if you're building the right reps and it's become repetitious, then when it works, that repetition's easy. Think of it as driving your car to work every day.
Mm-hmm.
After a while, it gets, you don't even remember half the trip when you get to work. So, I mean, you just got to keep doing it and doing it and doing it and doing it. And eventually it works. And then it's not a big deal anymore. It's just second nature. And so
Yep.
that's what you got to build yourself up to. That point where you feel like you want to quit is not the point you quit. And actually, there isn't a point to quit. We've talked in the past about Justin Fire and all that other stuff, and making sure you're reevaluating your plan. But right now, it's digging in deep to make sure that you don't stop putting in the reps.
That's right. The one thing that I've heard several times, and one thing that I've used for myself, is just the psychological trick of, you feel like you want to quit. You know what? I can quit tomorrow. Let me get through today. And then tomorrow, you're like, I can quit tomorrow. Let me get through today. So if you need to get something like out of your mouth and out into the universe, and like give yourself permission to, I don't feel like this is working, so I'm just going to quit tomorrow. You don't quit today. And then you just keep like rinse and repeat. I think that that's a super effective and easy way to kind of get outside of your own head. Like, you give yourself a little bit of that permission, right? You can say it out loud, whatever you want to do. But you don't quit in the moment.
No.
And that's when you're building not only that muscle memory, but that resilience. Like, resilience is really the key here when you're talking about achieving big goals. And, I'll often, when I was a coach, and even now, like, I'll use the analogy of Michael Jordan very often, because I don't care what anyone says, like, he was the GOAT. He was the greatest basketball player of all time.
You mean it wasn't Kobe?
Well, I mean, Kobe was like his protege.
Yeah.
And dude, we can go down a rabbit hole on this, because my middle son is a huge LeBron fan. And I'm like, we talk about stats and all that stuff all the time. But at the end of the day, like, do you really think that Michael Jordan wanted to be in the gym at 4:00 in the morning, practicing free throws, practicing his layups, like doing all the stuff? But at the end of the day, that's the stuff that made him so great. So I always encourage people to think about the people that have achieved big things in their lives, and what would have happened if that person gave up? And do you not think that they didn't want to give up? Like, how many times can you shoot a basketball from the same exact location on the court and not feel like, man, this is so boring, I want to jump off the roof of this arena? But if you want to achieve anything that's great in your life,
you got to put in the reps.
It takes work, and some of that work is boring.
Yeah, it is. I remember there were so many times where my job in the military required me to get up at 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning and be there early. Thank you, William, for commenting. Stay strong. I agree.
Mm-hmm.
But I learned there are many things like coffee and conversation and stuff like that get you through it. But all of those things that I did there, where I'd have to get up early, they mattered, because as a leader, when you show up early and you are making sure that you get all of your stuff done, so that when everybody else shows up, you're more prepared for them. I mean, that's just one example of why it's important to do those boring, mundane things to make sure you're doing the right thing. And when it comes to making yourself successful with a plan that you put together for yourself, so many of those things are going to come into play. I mean,
Yep.
all that preparation you do before you do that big speech or that interview for that next job, or making sure that you're prepped for Monday morning when you stand in front of your people over at work, and all that other stuff, because when you are doing the extra stuff and going through the motions constantly, whether you're seeing the results or not, those things matter and people will see that. And more importantly, you are showing yourself that you can still do it, because how's that saying go? You're the biggest battle you're ever going to fight in this world is against the one in the mirror. So I mean, you just got to make sure that you're pushing through all of the BS that you're talking about in your head. William says networking and education. Well, I mean, I think that's important for anything that you're doing, is making sure you're staying up to date with everything in your industry, and talking to people that are relevant in that as well. So thank you for commenting on that.
Yeah, and that's a good point. Like that's part of the just the connection and the relationships, right? Because a lot of times too, when you're going after a goal, if you let other people know what you're working on and you're not doing it in secret, then you have a better chance of someone just maybe even proactively saying, "Hey, how's it going with, X?" And that in and of itself, if you're a competitive person, at least in your mind, you can't let those other people down who are expecting you to achieve that. So, and that drives you as a motivator.
Yeah.
So, having those networks and those relationships where you can be open and honest, it could even be uh, talking to those people and saying, like, man, it just feels so boring. It feels so monotonous right now. And I set this goal, and that's where you can get that um affirmation, or people can reaffirm, like, hey, do you remember why you set this goal? Do you remember why you're doing this work? They can reinforce the fact that sometimes boring is where the real work happens.
Yeah.
So yeah, networking is definitely, and building relationships, definitely a part of it.
Yeah, I agree. And I have to use a personal example here, because I was actually just thinking about this about 3 or 4 different times this week. Almost every single time I get either up on stage or in front of a group of people, or have that coaching client, or whatever the case may be, I'm always thinking to myself, why am I the one to do the thing?
Mhm.
And this is just another thing to throw in the mix. When you're not seeing the results of everything that you're doing, or maybe you are, but you're questioning yourself along the way. I mean, so many motivators are going to keep you from executing and having success in what you do. But just remember why you're doing it.
Yeah.
Just remember that people wouldn't have invited you to that thing to speak if they didn't think you had a relevant background, or that your topic wasn't relevant, or they wouldn't have hired you to be a coach if they didn't believe in you to begin with, because that stuff's not cheap. So I mean, and if you're an employee in a business, if you're a manager somewhere, they wouldn't have hired you to be that manager if they didn't want you to be leading their people. And that's extremely relevant, because when you're in front of other people and you're that trusted person, sometimes you don't always feel like you're doing a very good job. You just don't. You'll
Yeah.
walk away and you'll think to yourself, man, nobody actually said anything. So I wonder if anything I said made a difference at all.
I have absolutely been there.
Yes.
And yeah, those times are tough, right? There's a little bit of that imposter syndrome. Like, why am I the person who they chose to hire to give this keynote speech or whatever? Um, but yeah, you just gotta get that stuff out of your head. And you just have to tell yourself, like, the reason I'm here is because I've done all these things that led up to it. And I mean, we've all seen variations of the picture where it's like the tip of the iceberg, and it's like, success, cars, yada yada, like very small. This is what people see, and then the iceberg is so much bigger at the bottom, and it's all the things under the surface that people don't see, and that's what we're talking about here. Um, when you start to lose the motivation, that's the stuff that's happening under the surface.
Oh yeah.
And we've also talked about the fact that motivation and discipline kind of go hand in hand, much like with a car. It's the torque that gets you off the line. It's the horsepower that keeps you racing and gets you across the line. So sometimes that torque, our motivation, is lacking, and that's where the discipline needs to come in and backfill it.
Yeah.
And I don't even know, JJ, how many times we've said on this show over the years we've done it, that sometimes you just got to embrace the suck.
You have to embrace the suck.
And
all
like,
the time.
dude, that's a real thing.
Yes.
You don't want to do it, just get up and just start moving and just do it.
Yep.
And you'll thank yourself for it later.
I think so. And by the way, William, thank you so much for all the comments you've made. I don't normally,
Absolutely.
I don't normally have people wanting to promote anything on the show, but you said you have a crawl, walk, run for military page. I'll check that out. I do have a podcast where I speak on Wednesdays with other leaders. So not just with Chris, I do have other guests as well. So if you wanted to do a live stream, I'd be happy to talk to you, especially since you're a military leader as well. So there you go. There's William has a crawl, walk, run leadership page. Go check it out if that's relevant to you. But motivation over discipline. I do not believe in motivation. I believe in getting stuff done. And though you have to have your why behind getting started in the first place, but once you're going, quitting is really not an option. And I think that's a valid point to bring up here, because how many times do you wake up in the morning and not want to go to the gym if that's something that you value as being fit all the time? Or how often do you get up in the morning and not want to drag your butt to work, but you got to pay the bills, so you got to do what you got to do? My goodness, I did not want to get up at 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning when I served in the military just to go have this false motivation set to go run and do PT with my fellow soldiers. I mean, that was definitely an embrace the suck situation, because who wants to get up that early and have everybody screaming all the same time? And sometimes it was fun, but most of the time I was like, man, I just do not have the motivation to be screaming along with you guys right now. Especially as I started getting into my 30s. My goodness, the way I felt after a run was not that was not indicative of somebody who wanted to sound off in formation.
That's right.
So, I mean, you just have to do what you have to do. If it moves, say you have your own business, if it moves the needle in your business and you don't feel like doing it, and then you don't do it, you're not just cheating those people that you could be helping. You're cheating yourself and you're cheating your business. And so do it. You may not you don't have to like it. You just have to do it. And at work, it goes the same way. You don't have to do all the things, but you also don't have to have a job. So you might just want to do it because it's your duty and responsibility.
Well, and here's the other thing too, that not all the things that we do can be measured by how much it moves the needle, like in that instance.
No.
Sometimes the needle is moving in a very small clip that you can't necessarily measure day to day. Some activities, absolutely. You can measure the impact of, I do this, it results in this, boom, needle moved significantly. I can measure it. But the incremental movements is not only where you can kind of lose sight of it, but the flip side of that is sometimes it's that momentum that you've built that if you don't do it, there's a better chance that you see that needle move backwards more so than you can see the incremental forward movement. So once you get into that groove, that's the other thing you have to keep in mind is, all right, if I don't do this and, it's running my own business or whatever it is, it could have negative effects that will show up. And then now you've got to take 5 steps back just to get back to where you were today. And is it really worth it?
That's true. I have to put a plug in for what we do here and what I do for my other shows when it comes to my podcast here. This is an example of one of those things that I don't have to do at all. But you and I have talked about this over the years quite a bit because this is one of those things that keeps you sharp. You have conversations about stuff that you wouldn't normally talk about. We do make an impact. I receive comments about this stuff that people are asking me questions, whether it's on a comment on the video or it's a private comment where they're asking me a question in a DM about the topic that we talked about. And so, but is it getting me business? It is not, but it's keeping me relevant and it's making me better. I think it's making Chris better. And I think that some people are listening out there, whether they're commenting or not, that it's probably making them better as well. And sometimes
I
when
sure
you're
hope
going,
so.
what's that?
I sure hope so.
Well, I hope so too. That's the point of doing it, right? Actionable
Yeah.
leadership advice that you can take action on immediately. That's kind of what our tagline is. But when it comes to these sort of conversations, what I am finding, and I think when you were a private leadership coach and now that you're in a business as well, I think you even find more relevant. What moves the needle on building relationships and making influence in your organization? Having conversations about the topics that matter.
Right.
A lot of
Exactly.
organizations, they don't do it. They focus on metrics. And so hopefully what people would get out of this show is that these are the topics that you should be having conversations about in your organization so that those people that are struggling will come forward and start saying, "Hey, why aren't we having more conversations about this?" Or
Yeah.
whatever the case may be, because people struggle with this stuff.
It,
That person who gets promoted to a manager for that first time, how often have you actually given that person any teaching, coaching, or mentoring? Probably not very often.
right.
And they deserve it.
Yep. Yeah. You're absolutely right. And it is super important. One of the things that I love about the company that I work for is that we are very people focused. Um, we've spent a lot of time and energy developing these 9 principles that are the tools that help people to succeed. Their, behaviors and I don't want to say character traits because that wouldn't be a right definition, but
Except for the
they're
Buffalo.
right, except being Buffalo. But so much of that does come down to having conversations.
Yeah.
We do these quarterly assessments and then we encourage people to go seek feed forward from other people on the team. And I mean, we have this year we instituted having an entire Rolodex of coaches so that our people can work with someone outside of the organization to be better at what they do. But again, coaching is conversations, and those conversations lead to actions and, the whole 9 yards. But that's sometimes when you're feeling stuck, a conversation can really just be that boot in the ass that gets you rocking and rolling.
Yeah. Yeah, it is. But if you don't talk about it, it never gets addressed.
Exactly.
Yeah. I mean, you have to, that's why I called my show what I called it. That's why I wrote my book. You got to speak up and show up. Otherwise you're not leading. You're just going through the motions every day. And that, I think it's an important thing that in organizations, especially with your younger people, because they haven't led a ton of people before. They haven't led at different levels before. They may not even like a lot of the people that they got promoted to lead. And when you're at the execution level, well, when you don't like somebody, you don't always necessarily have to do anything with that person except for maybe, hey, can you help me lift this? Or, hey, can you lift this? Can you take your forklift and move my pallet over here, or whatever the case may be. So when you're leading that and you're making sure that the overall mission is getting accomplished for your section or your your team of whatever sorts, I mean, you got to be having conversations with people about the stuff that matters. And otherwise, I mean, that, gosh, there are so many industries out there, construction, warehousing, and all that stuff, where people feel like they're on an island.
Yeah.
And that's not what this conversation is about. But making sure that you're having conversations with your people so that you build those relationships. And that's really what matters in an organization anyway. But as far as you executing and giving up on yourself, just think, if that's what your new position is, and you're just going through the motions every day, but you actually wanted that new thing, are you doing yourself any justice? Your team's not going to like you. You're not going to succeed at your new job the way that you wanted to succeed at your new job. Your business isn't going to succeed if that's what you decided to do. And so make sure that you're always out there building those relationships and keeping yourself relevant in whatever you're doing, so that you can thrive instead of just get lost in the sauce again.
Yeah. And one of the phrases that I repeat often when people feel like something's boring, or one of the principles that we have at Black Canyon is action over analysis.
Yep.
Right? Like, let's get moving, figure it out along the way. But there's a dichotomy to that, where if you don't have some kind of foundation to draw upon, then the action that you're taking may be less impactful. So I often talk about, like, the whole theory behind slow is smooth, smooth is fast. And when you have the foundation, you've gotten those reps in, you're able to move and make decisions much faster, because you've kind of seen it, you've been through it, you've been through the meat grinder or whatever. But sometimes when you're facing a decision for the first time and you've never seen anything like it ever in your life, you're more likely to make a poor decision.
Yep.
Or get stuck in the analysis phase of, like, how do I make this decision? But if you've been through rep after rep after rep, you can at least point yourself in the right direction and iterate as you go. So getting the boring stuff in, you just have to reinforce to yourself as you're going through it that this is where the consistency is what builds the performance over time. And if I'm not putting in the consistent work, then that's going to be a weakness in my performance going forward. I'm not really going to achieve these goals. People aren't going to be able to depend on me in the way that I want them to. So suck it up, buttercup, and, like, let's get the boring stuff done.
Yeah. And so a perfect example of that, I have to use a personal one, obviously, but when I first started my business about 4 years ago, as soon as I started my business, there was this conference over here. It's called Entrefest. And I thought, well, I can teach leadership, which, by the way, back then I didn't really know what teaching leadership even meant. I just knew that I wanted to go out and help people, that it would be great. I had this great idea and I did a great job for my last company. And so, but as I walked through there, I realized, once people started asking me about my business and it was brand new, I knew nothing. I was like, well, if your team or whatever needs some help, I can help you with that. Duh.
You're right.
You already know how that goes when you're first getting started, because you have
Yeah.
a problem to solve, but how do you do it and how do you articulate it? Oh, no, I'm just going to go out there and fail until I figure it out. But,
That's right.
To your point, what I ended up doing is I started talking to people in different industries that started businesses and that performed a service for other people. And I started to learn that attention is everything, getting in networking groups and finding out what other people need help with, and talking to some of these corporations, not trying to get business, but just, finding out the complexity of the real world stuff. And I'm not going to go into all of it, but at the end of it, I realized that starting something new, you don't always know. And you are probably going to start off not every time, because likely you have some experience with something, but you might look pretty stupid. And so that's okay though. I mean, my goodness, we're not supposed to be perfect at everything. That's not the way it works. And if you have a true passion for whatever we're doing, and that's why I'm bringing this up, because we're at the end of our call here, but that doesn't mean you quit. That means you find out more about what you're trying to do so that you can go out there and win. Because if you give up on yourself when you start feeling a little bit dumb, then you really are dumb. That's you don't you're only you only truly fail when you give up on yourself. So don't do that.
That's right. Agreed. Yeah, like you can be the first person to give up on yourself. Um, that's going to create a chain reaction of others. Like, because once you give up on yourself, your actions speak louder than your words, and people see that you've kind of given up. And now they're like, oh, okay, I'm going to write this guy off.
Yeah. And it happens fast when
It
you,
does.
because people will see that lack of self-belief. And if I mean, gosh, if you're supposed to be leading others, especially if you don't even have that self-belief and they sniff that out, getting them to do anything outside of the very minimum of their job is going to be very, very difficult.
Yep.
And so don't make sure you're working on yourself. If you lead yourself, you have confidence in yourself, you have belief in yourself, so that you can go out there and lead whatever you're doing, lead your business, lead your team, lead whatever it is that you're trying to do. And that self-belief shows in so many ways. And don't, I mean, it's okay to have conversations about how you're not super confident and stuff, and be, you're being, what's the word I'm trying to think of?
Vulnerable.
Vulnerable with other people. Thank you.
Mm.
First cup of coffee. Anyway, but it's okay to be vulnerable and have those conversations. That builds trust. But don't just go out there flopping, think and telling everybody that you're confident and that you're perfect, because they're going to sniff that BS out. That's not the way you do it.
That's right.
So we'll probably close it out here. Chris, do you have anything to say before we do? I guess, because I forgot to do it in the beginning, do the promotions for my books and then close it out.
Yeah. I guess my closing thoughts here are, understand that when you're working on a goal, it's not always going to be flashy. It's not always going to be fun, but putting in that work, especially when you don't want to, that's when it's going to be most rewarding. And I would say give yourself permission to kind of give up tomorrow, and don't do it today, because what you're going to find is if you say, all right, you know what, I'm going to quit, but I'll do it tomorrow. Then you do the thing today and you feel great about it. Like, man, I'm so happy that I didn't give up today. So, give yourself a little grace, but don't allow yourself to give up today. Say, hey, yeah, I'll give up tomorrow. But it's the boring things that truly make the difference in the back end that no one sees, that you don't even see sometimes. But having the discipline to just like get through it is really going to yield the results.
Yep. And I'm just going to add to what you said, because you said quit tomorrow, but when tomorrow shows up, don't actually quit.
That's right.
You always say tomorrow, 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 tomorrow. And then eventually quitting is not even going to be part of it. And just remember, when you give up on something, you're not actually giving up on that thing. You're giving up on you doing that thing. So if you're comfortable with giving up on yourself, then proceed. If not, keep going.
That's right.
Okay. Thank you, Stephen, especially. Yeah, Stephen, I'll reach out to you. And actually, Chris, he said both of us. So I'll make sure. Well, you'll see it if you're on Facebook. Just he'll be down in the comments. But his name is William Stephen something. But anyway, he's the only one that's been commenting this whole video. So we'll reach out to you, Stephen. Don't worry about it. We got you. But don't forget to grab my books. I did publish my newest one, Resilience is Built, Not Born. And by the way, we talked about how to become more resilient. This book is basically a guide on becoming more resilient. I wrote down all my ideas, and I got to let ChatGPT and my wife murder it and tell me how horrible my grammar and everything was. But anyway, I published it. It's good. I've gotten some good feedback on it, but also don't forget about my original book. This is my story from the ground up. Speak up, show up, lead. Team, thank you for following us along on our journey. Don't forget to like, subscribe, share, but the most important thing is to comment below so we know what you want to hear, because we don't always want to talk about what we want to say. We want to know what you need so we can help you. Everybody take care.
Have an awesome day.